So Nicola Sturgeon saying it's not down to short-term pressures and issues and controversies. What is it down to, though, really?
Well, I think, you know what, there's a word, Patrick, that people in Scotland use, people like me from Northern Ireland use as well, which is she's scundered. She's fed up. She's kind of had enough, if you like. And that is down, I think, in part, it must be to some of those short-term issues, particularly around the trans issue and how she has dealt with that. I don't think there is any doubt, despite her denial, that that has expedited this decision of hers to step down. But, you know, you look at where she's at. You know, ultimately, she's been in the job for 10 years, essentially. The economy's pretty stagnant. There's clearly not been as much progress in education as she would have liked, given the benchmark she'd set herself. And there is this big, massive, overlooming issue of the independence. What is she going, or what is the party going to do about this? They are blocked in terms of the UK Supreme Court. It is clear the UK government's not going to give them a means of having this second referendum. And there are divisions in the party about what to do next, to push for this essentially de facto referendum at the next Westminster elections, which lots of people think is slight nonsense. And so there doesn't seem to be a way through. And in the end, I think, ultimately, when you add all that together, maybe it is not a surprise that she's decided to call it a day, though, of course, she did insist in that press conference it's not going to be the end of her political career, just her time as Scotland's First Minister, who should continue to campaign, not least of all, for Scottish independence. But in the end, wow, what a massive surprise, Patrick. We don't often get these in politics, actually, where people decide to step away voluntarily and surprise everyone else. We knew, really, it was coming probably to the end of her term, in the sense that she might well step down after the next Westminster elections or around the Holyrood elections, but not as soon as this. It has come, really, frankly, as quite a surprise. And the big question now, as always with politics, is who the hell takes over?
Yes, who the hell takes over, indeed. And actually, a little bit later on, I'm going to be running through, well, the runners and the riders, as it were. Just quickly, Darren, it was out of the blue. It was a bit of a shock. And I think it seems slightly suspicious, doesn't it, really, in some senses? And some people are saying, well, she was very quiet when asked a question in that press conference about the Police Scotland. It's an investigation into allegedly missing money from the SNP funds. She was quite quiet about that, wasn't she?
Yeah, I mean, and this involves primarily, it must be said, her husband, who is a really senior figure in the SNP and has been for years. In fact, effectively, those two have ruled the SNP for, as I said, the best part of a decade. Now, there are police investigations. Again, I don't think anyone at the moment is joining dots saying that's the reason why, though it's clear also we don't really know the full story. As I say, I think she kind of has effectively, Patrick, slightly reached a dead end. Now, let's be clear about this. There are a lot of people here who dislike Nicola Sturgeon. There are a lot of people who really like her as well. And there is no doubt she's been one of the most impressive politicians across these islands over the last decade or so. She's an incredible communicator. She has, in many ways, shifted the political debate here in Holyrood and indeed at Westminster. You only have to look at the tweets from lots of our political rivals to recognise that she will be a massive, massive loss to the SNP. And I suppose that's the big problem, isn't it, for the SNP, is in the end, where do they turn next? And what does this mean, not just for them, but indeed for the independence movement? Because many would suggest, given what's happened in recent weeks, that it is on a backward slide. And that seems unlikely to change now with Nicola Sturgeon's resignation.